everyone, welcome back to S.H.I.E.L.D. Discussions. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm TheRealManos.
Manos, we're only one away from the end of the season, and my goodness, were there quite a few developments all kind of thrown into this one. This was just sort of, hey, here's this thing you didn't know yet that you've been waiting to know. Here's this other thing you didn't know. It seemed like every 10 minutes it was like, here's a thing.
Yeah, it was a very, very busy time-traveling episode, really.
Yeah,
Not
it was
in
super.
the time travel method everyone uses. I mean, I like the flashback pacing, going back to the origins of Garrett and Ward. Meanwhile, we got the whole hubbub with trying to figure out what they'll be doing next and breaking the cyber tech. This is a pretty interesting episode.
I thought it was really interesting. Yeah, we'll get into it in just a second. Let's talk about a few notes that the audience had from last episode, which was nothing personal. And the first one comes from Richard Pauly, who says, I like how a few episodes ago, May says to Coulson that Fury buried that information when he buried you. And in fact, this episode we found out she meant that literally. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, that was pretty clever because it's one of those things like, oh yeah, you buried him. Like, oh no, literally.
That's one of those things I'm sure I would have caught on a second pass through the season where I'd be like, oh, okay, I see what you did there. Garrett Keelty says, I feel like Black Widow is going to appear in this before the season ends. They've name dropped her so many times throughout the season. I can see why you'd say that. I don't think it's going to happen because it's not a secret that we're getting Fury in the last episode of the season. So I doubt that they do that and then kind of sneak her in there. But you make a really good point. She's been name dropped nearly every episode or every other episode.
Let's see.
But when when you've got the kind of when everybody knows you the way they know her and she's got that kind of reputation, I can kind of see why they're mentioning her all the time. I mean, like the beginning of the season when they would mention certain people, I would feel like it was kind of for the sake of novelty. But after a while, it was just sort of like, yeah, she's sort of the best thing at every. She's sort of the best at everything.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Let's see. I see. The thing is also she's like a named character, and she's going to be referenced a lot. I doubt we're going to see her because there's been no mention of Scarlett Johansson. They're going to have to pay Scarlett Johansson money, and I don't know if they have Scarlett Johansson level money. I mean, they're already paying. They're already getting Colby Summers, and they're already having a cameo with Samuel Jackson. So I don't know if they're
Yeah,
going to be able to
and the
do
thing
that too.
well, and people keep mentioning, well, if they can get Sam Jackson, they can get anybody, but he works a lot. You know what I mean?
And also, if they get him, there's so
I'm sorry, what? You're breaking up.
if they get Samuel Jackson, well, then they're spending that money. You know, they
Yeah,
can't
good.
exactly
That's
like fork it
money they
over.
don't have for other people. Yeah, exactly. And the thing you got to keep in mind about Colby Smulders is that she's a TV actress.
Yeah, she's a
So
little cheaper, I imagine.
she's affordable. Yeah, I'm sure she's affordable. But like the only reason she's just kind of been cameo so far is because she had a busy schedule before. I would not be surprised if she wasn't a very recurring character next season. Like I think if this show lasts very long, let's say we got into third or fourth season,
Mm-hmm.
we likely to look back on first season and be like, hey, remember back when Maria Hill was a big deal for actually being in this show?
Yeah.
Millsy Mill says, I think Coulson was a different person before the show. In movies like Iron Man 2 and 4, he seemed more by the book, i.e. taking Jane Foster's equipment. He seemed less jokey and more of a hard ass with some lighthearted moments. Now he seems more lighthearted and more composed, even in the state of emergency and all the problems going on. Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I don't think it's a mistake. I think they're doing that on purpose. I think that he is a different character, and we were talking about that identity stuff a lot last episode. I think that that's part of the point with him is that he doesn't feel like the same guy he was before, and he's trying to come to terms with the fact that he wasn't just resurrected, he was kind of recreated, and he's sort of reimagined himself really, and so he sort of takes the good with the bad, and I think he's actually like a better and cooler person than he was before, and eventually I think he's going to come to terms more and more to terms with that to the point where it's going to be kind of a good thing. What do you think about that, Manos?
Oh, that's an interesting idea. The thing is, I keep thinking about just standard character progression, where you work on a character and you learn layers, and also we see a character through a different point of view. But then there's that thing about having his whole brain kind of rewritten, so that does actually make a lot of sense.
EC Cons says when Sky says no ward, you're a serial killer, it kind of parallels back to Turn, Turn, Turn when Coulson says to Garrett, no, John, this is you being a psychopath. Yeah, good call. I think it is a callback to that. Or if it's not, it's neat that it accidentally sort of works that way. Here is a long comment from King of Mad Cows. I think this episode exemplifies the biggest weakness of the show. It's just not doing a very good job of building this world or showing the sense of urgency and danger needed. Garrett and Hydra just stole a cache of technology and weapons that are as dangerous as nuclear bombs, and they released a group of superpowered criminals to boot. The gravitonium can destroy entire cities. They probably have the wreck of the weather control device that can create superstorms, and who knows how many people those criminals can endanger. This is a pretty dire threat to the world. It's worse than anything Jack Bauer has ever dealt with. However, the show just isn't doing enough to make us feel the sense of danger and suspense this kind of situation warrants. Yes, we all know that the government slash military can be short-sighted, have Coulson and his team try to explain just how effed up everything is and how bad things could get if Hydra ever decides to set all those super criminals loose to terrorize the world or use one of S.H.I.E.L.D's super weapons to blow up a major city. After all, Hydra did just try to kill 20 million people, and now they have weapons that can kill even more. The situation calls for that 24-esque edge of your seat nail-biting suspense, but it's just not there. How do you respond to that, Manos?
No.
Should we feel a great deal more suspense because of what we just gave Hydra?
I feel
Is it
like we've
not?
been feeling a lot of suspense. I'm actually, I don't know. I suppose we're not dealing with those specific issues. We're mainly dealing with our group of heroes versus Garrett's characters. I imagine if we get a season two, I think we do have a season two. That will be the engine for more stories over the next season.
And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if some of that builds into even Avengers 2, because I've been hearing a lot, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I've been hearing a lot of rumor that Hydra is supposed to factor into Avengers 2, and so all of that technology that they have could come up there. And when we get into stuff like Baron von Strucker and stuff, I mean, we know that from the end of Winter Soldier that Strucker's got, von Strucker's got all this random stuff that we didn't know about before. And so it could just be that that's going to play out on a bigger kind of stage. But I do want to address this for a second because it is a valid point. It's not something I thought of, but the notion of if these people have the kinds of stuff they have where they could just start randomly leveling cities if they wanted to, why aren't our characters talking about that? That's a fair point. But at the same time, I think that part of it might just be in the writing of this kind of trap of the writers know that that's not Garrett's motivation, and therefore it's not happening, and so they're not infusing that kind of suspense and intensity into the stories. Now I'm with you, Manos. I think that there is a lot of intensity, but it comes from other places, and it comes from more kind of intimate character places. But like the idea of, well, we find out in this episode that Garrett is out completely for himself. I mean, we knew that he was out for himself, but that it's all about just saving his own life. So he's not really interested in using any of that tag. I think it's just a matter of I'm working with Hydra, and every now and again I gotta do something for them, throw them a bone so I get what I want. Like what's kind of interesting about Garrett is that he thinks very small scale. He's not this big take over the world kind of supervillain. It's all about the here and now.
I agree, and I think that's essentially what we've been able to get out of this situation is that the situation is intimate between Colton and Garrett, and what Colton is involved in isn't anymore the big wide picture. I imagine other people are chasing him down. If I may take a guess at this point, I know we're talking about Shield, but if I may take a guess, that the big prison breakout may have something to do with Avengers 2, where the Age of Ultron uh, might come into play. Essentially, I'm beginning to think that with the chaos after Shield going down, and the Avengers are having to pick up the slack. Tony Stark is having to pick up the slack. I think that's probably where Ultron is going to come into play,
Well, and
where
also
he
come to
needs something in order to kind of make that make an army really, or make something that can possibly pick up the slack from losing like all these shield field agents all over the place. And then of course it'll blow up in their faces.
well,
At least that's a theory I have.
yeah, to keep in mind though that you build up an army in a TV show like this, and that the whole army thing's probably going to play out in the show, don't you figure? I didn't think about this right when I was talking a second ago. No, since they're doing the whole super soldier thing, and having that scene with Quinn at the end, they are kind of throwing us a bone there with that whole thing that we've got all this crazy technology and Hydra's about to start using it. Although with the whole super soldier thing, they kind of had a lot of that already, right? I don't know how much of that has anything to do with the stuff that they just stole, or does it? I don't know.
um,
I guess it probably does. I guess I don't know what they had before is the thing.
that's true. I mean, they could have any. It's a little hard to imagine. Like do they have what we already know is in the Marvel universe as far as weapons and technology? Especially with stuff that hasn't been established in the film franchises yet.
Yeah, but again, to this guy's point, they've got the whole gravitonium thing, and they've got all this other thing. Like they are way too powerful right now. I think is what he's is what he's saying.
Oh, they are. They are. Yeah.
They're incredibly crazy powerful, and yeah, Coulson doesn't seem all that worried about that, but he's also got to go kind of one step at a time. And I think it's easier for Coulson. Maybe I'm being too apologetic for what they're doing, but I do think that it's probably easier for Coulson and especially some of the other members of his team to think of this as us versus Garrett and Ward as opposed to us versus Hydra, because them up against Hydra, they're going to lose.
Well, there's only like four of them, for God's sakes.
Yes, and they're
Um,
operating at a hotel room.
they're operating out of a Motel 6 or something. They can't fight the world's batch of armies of supervillains right now. Their focus has to be more intimate. I assume other people are working on it. And I know the show really can't focus on that right now. Maybe we'll get it next season, but I don't know. I don't think it's possible for them to really do that at this point.
Yeah, because we're not
Even in the
dealing with
story, even in the story structure, I think it would kind of be a little out of what they were trying to do.
Well, the thing is, we're not dealing with Shield as a major organization anymore. We're dealing with Coulson and his band of as the title of this episode suggests, ragtag, group of people, and so uh, all they can really do is deal with this immediate threat. And luckily for them, Garrett isn't using any of that stuff yet, except that they don't know about this big super soldier thing that's about to happen. So I would say that it looks like the Shield, like the show is maybe actually finally about to address some of the stuff that this guy's talking about. But I'm also really not sure how much of that is just centipede juice over stuff that they got out of that bunker. So I guess we'll see. Since we have the centipede juice and all that stuff earlier, it's really hard to imagine why they couldn't have created that army earlier unless there's something I'm not thinking of. Like because there is a whole bunch of stuff in the last couple episodes about all of the things that they managed to get there, and also the information that they got from the drive from the plane and stuff. So I'm not sure how all that factors into the army, but the army thing has just been established, so I'm sure they'll flesh it out. Let's move on for a little bit. The Bandicoot Nerd 131. I don't think Ward will be in season two. I think either he's going to do some heroic sacrifice to save Sky and the team, which you and I have talked about is likely, or he'll end up teaming up to stop Hydra, but end up serving time after all the events that have happened. So basically, we'll just make him Faith from Buffy. I think the latter might happen, judging by the episode 21 promo. Yeah. What I'm wondering, Manos, is after this season, what else there's going to be to say about this character?
I imagine that no, it's only speculation on my part. I do feel like, especially with I think there was a lot of setup in this episode of loyalty and betrayal,
Right.
and we're seeing the relationship and what Garrett means to him. But at the same time, Garrett like talks about this philosophy he has that loyalty is a weakness, uh, which I think is a really extremely flawed viewpoint. But hey, he's a villain, and so
Well, this was the flaw.
of course he thinks something stupid. He's a villain.
Yeah,
Oh,
but they tell us why, which makes it work.
well, no, he does explain. He does explain because he feels like, oh, he talks
like she.
about how he had this moment where he was left by Shield, and he was
Right.
loyal to them, and they kind of just left him high and dry on a mission. So I guess to him that proved that point, which I don't know. It's
Yeah, so he went for an extreme philosophy of, well, if this is the way everyone is, then I guess I have to adopt that philosophy myself. Like, it's not even an extreme opposite philosophy. It's kind of the philosophy he feels like they have. It's almost like they taught him something, and so like Shield indirectly is responsible for creating this guy. I really like that.
mm-hmm.
But also he's a sympathetic villain, not in just a he's likable, I like him kind of way. He's a sympathetic villain in that I buy that he turned out this way, and also I'm impressed that he manages to always stick to that philosophy. Like he truly believes in that. And before we thought that this was kind of this guy that just didn't really believe in anything, and it's kind of neat that he actually sort of does believe in something and he sticks to that completely. And when you get a sense toward the I guess we're jumping in this episode a lot now, but when you get toward the end of this episode and you kind of I kind of got the sense, this is how I read it, I kind of got the sense that it's as difficult for him as it is for Ward a lot of the time to be disloyal and to do the things he does, and that the kind of jovial two-dimensional mustache twirling villain thing he does is a mask, and it's how he hides all that. Like, I don't know, he turned into a very three-dimensional character for me this episode.
I have to agree. I like him a lot. Well, I mean, he does believe in something. He believes in survival. He believes that
Yeah.
loyalty can be a detriment to survival. So we definitely got to see a lot of that. I really liked seeing this backstory with him and Ward and how genuine the connection is. Back when he was a young criminal and looking a lot like Jim Carrey from Dumb and Dumber.
I agree with you. Let's get into all that stuff in just a minute. I have a couple more of these I want to read real fast. One is from George Simmons, who said if I released a ringtone that was my version of the Shield theme song, he would play for he would pay for it. I'll work on that. I'll get in the studio later and work on that. He also says, "Hey Cap, while you say the theme of the series is heroes, which is valid, thanks for that, appreciate that. I find this series has the theme of choice, and certainly we see that all over this episode. You're absolutely right." He says Sky thinks that Mike is still salvageable as he has been forced to be evil, while Ward and Garrett have chosen to be evil. Also, there's the fact that Coulson did not have any choice in his resurrection, despite him begging on the operating table and his video found in his grave this episode. I'm glad I decided to include this comment because it occurs to me that there is a major parallel between Sky from last episode. Now that I'm thinking of this again, and fits this episode where Sky is positive that Deathlock is salvageable, and Fitz is positive that Ward is, and they both think that they've seen things in these people that make them more than just straight evil. It'll be interesting to see how all that plays out, but I don't know. Watching these together, I think we're going to find that this is more intricately thematically plotted than maybe they seem separately. Let's go ahead and jump into the episode, Manos.
Yeah.
So we've already been doing some of that. Yeah, let's just get right into the flashback stuff. I liked all of that,
Yes.
a lot, and it was to build up this philosophy that Garrett has, and I like that he got Ward young. Like, I think everything Ward is and does in this makes so much more sense after we find out that he burned his own house down. I guess he's a lot like that chick from Lost. He burned his own house down and he ran off, and then he got picked up and thrown in juvie. And if Garrett hadn't gone to him, he wouldn't have the skills he has. He wouldn't be the person that he is. But if the right person had gotten to him, he would not be as messed up in the head as he's turned out either. So anyway, yeah, I was impressed with all that. I thought it was really cool.
I agree, and I'm really happy they did it in this manner. And like you said, like he got to him young, and it's not any of the uh, super science magic hojo that some people some people in the show are thinking happened to Ward, or even some fans hoping that maybe he's being brainwashed of some sort. No, it's kind of like real life.
Yeah,
He
exactly. It's
helped
so
him
much
out.
more than that.
He kind of developed. He got him at a developing kind of stage in his life where he was pretty much an aimless punk, really. And there is that bond that was created, and I can see why. He's so connected to Garrett because of all that.
Well, I think it's really cool that that we literally are making it about survival.
Yes.
Garrett's whole thing is don't trust anybody. Make it all about you surviving and do just whatever you have to do to do that. And he makes his point in the clearest way he can by throwing Ward out in and making him fend for himself in the woods for 6 months. We literally are making it about survival. I think that's great. The other thing that I loved about that was that the first thing that Garrett says to Ward when they first meet is never trust anybody, especially me. And after what happens last episode, you get the sense that Ward has been changed, irrevocably by his team on the plane, and he forgot that it's not about loyalty with those two, and something has gotten into his core. And what I really like is it was always there in the first place. From the very moment you meet this kid, you know that he just doesn't have direction. He's misguided. He doesn't know what to do with himself. And when somebody gets to you like that and says that your compassion is a weakness, what does that do to you? But it's always there. It never leaves. How do we take this? How do we take this guy from the least interesting character in the show to arguably one of the most interesting characters in the show?
That's pretty impressive feat, really. I mean, that's the last few episodes, and well, I mean, it's been it's been fascinating to watch. I mean, this character really did have a lot of layers. I don't know, like how if that was like from second one, or if that
Right.
came in the developing process. Oh, I'm glad I'm thankful it happened because wow, this character was kind of just there for the first half of the season.
Early on, there was a lot of, and I mean, I'm saying this in hindsight. You just don't know while you're watching a show before you see where it all goes. There was a lot of me going, man, right now I sure wish I knew more about the backgrounds of these characters. And with Ward, it's tough. They had to be really careful not to let us in on that secret.
Yeah.
And so, what can they tell us? I am very often down on flashbacks. I like to see narrative in fiction handle backstory in every possible way before having to resort to flashbacks as they possibly can. And in this case, there's no other way to do it. And they gave us that information precisely when we needed it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can't dog on him for going flashback. And how creepy looking is young Garrett? I don't know what it is about like the way they did his hair and stuff. Although I thought that present day his hair was a little bit too much like his old hair. For
I think they just blackened it a little bit.
Is that all they did with
I
it? But
feel
yeah,
like it.
I don't know. There was something about him in the past that made him creepier than in the present. I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe.
Oh, hey, let's talk about the Deathlock thing. Anybody else think it's super cool that he's the first Deathlock? And that, well, I guess I'm just saying that because you and I called it.
Yeah.
Uh, I was pretty excited about that because like we were like, oh man, is he a robot? Or I mean, is he a cyborg? Yeah, he is. Yay, that's cool. I'm glad we called that. But also, Deathlock is from 1990. I love that.
Yes, the year I graduated was the year that's the whole connection.
Well, no, it's just that like we keep talking about how Deathlock is kind of a product of the 90s
Yeah.
and how like he really was only relevant then. And I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but I think it's really fun
I
that they went back and said, "No, the first Deathlock was in the
I
90s." I
felt
love
like it
that.
was. I agree. I feel like it was on purpose because, yeah, Deathlock did kind of come out, I guess, in the '70s and then kind of disappeared. I mean, I don't even remember the character at all. They're in the '80s,
Yeah, I
and
know he
then
existed.
the '90s was like the big kind of like,
He was everywhere.
yeah, well, it wasn't everywhere, but they gave him a shot. They definitely
Bro,
put him out there.
he would just randomly show up in people's books, and you're like, "Why is he
Yeah,
here?"
who cares about this
Yeah, but I think they've made it work
Oh,
here.
he works here, yeah, but I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've never, ever, ever cared about that plot. He was
No,
just
that's totally fair, but it's fun to take something that you've heard of and nobody really cares about and then do something with it, you know? And I think that's why it didn't have to be anybody that's ever been called Deathlock before, right? Like,
exactly.
you just,
Well, that's
as a
well,
program,
well, there
make
are
us.
no. I don't know. I've always thought that. I mean, I tend to agree with the philosophy that there are no real bad characters. There's just bad characterization.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Writing. So Deathlock, on paper is not a bad idea. So there was material to work with. So and they did a good job getting me to care about the guy first before he became Deathlock. Because my exposure to Deathlock always has been he shows up and he's sad or shoots or something. I don't know. And then he goes
Yeah,
away.
the whole gimmick. Well, and what I like is that they've kept his gimmick, at least with Mike Peterson. The whole gimmick of Deathlock, that as far as I understood it, was always just here's a guy who looks really evil and that people are scared of if they see him, but he actually wants to be a hero and wants to be a good guy.
Yeah, which is a typical
And
Marvel thing, really.
that's yeah, exactly. It's there's more beneath the surface than what you can see, and like that's exactly what they've done with Mike Peterson. He sees himself as just this misunderstood character. He's trying to do the right thing, and he keeps getting roped up in bad things and having to work for bad people. It's
Yeah,
happened to him twice.
yeah,
Well, and in fact, you could make the argument that it's happened to him three times because he didn't trust Shield. You know, so he was working with Shield. We found out Shield was taken over by Hydra, and like in his mind, he probably got screwed three times. But anyway, so yeah, I love what they're doing with Deathlock. I love the whole idea of there's a first Deathlock, and there's a whole bunch of them, and it's this line of cyborgs.
which is
And
true. In the comics, there is a bunch of Deathloks. There isn't just the one.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you feel about this about Garrett's motivation that it's all about just trying to survive and that's what's been permeating his entire plot.
I suppose so. I mean, it's kind of a sad, pathetic motivation, really. I mean, it's pretty typical villain motivation. Frankly, is that I guess he considers loyalty, a weakness, which is, yeah, your kindness is weakness, your loyalty is weakness, and, all that kind of jazz and stuff.
Yeah, well, and it
And
makes
it makes sense in the context of the character. I mean, it came off as believable to me, and also the way he sells it. I think he's a great actor, so I mean he really kind of
that's the
sells
thing
that
about
kind of
Paxton,
philosophy.
and I'm starting to have that with Bill Paxton especially, but even other actors with this show where because there's a part of me that still doesn't fully trust the story writing on the show just because of some issues I had with it early and so like there are times where I'm like, okay, am I really buying what they're doing here, or is it just a really solid performance? And
Might be a little bit of both.
I've had that a little bit with Paxton, but I gotta say, so far I'm very, and I guess we're one episode away from the end of the season, but I really think it's solid right now. unless I start thinking of stuff where I'm like, oh wait, but like right now, I'm kind of cool. I mean, yeah, we've seen a whole lot of villains are dying, and they'll do anything they can to survive. I mean, that's Norman Osborn in the current Spider-Man movies,
Yeah.
but like if his whole philosophy, if the idea that we're playing with this character is survival, and if you can trust anyone to help you, stay alive, or if kindness is just a liability, then it makes sense that his main motivation would be, I'm dying, I can't trust anyone to help me, and so I'm manipulating people and forcing them to help me. I mean, it does in retrospect seem like a really convoluted plan that he's got to pretend like he's a mind reader in order to save his own life. At the end of the day, when it's not a big take over the world plot and it's that involved, it does seem a little bit silly, but it's kind of fun. Oh, that was one. I guess this is one of my favorite lines. I should maybe save it, but one of my favorite things in this episode was when he says, "Speak up, boy, I'm not a mind reader." Did you catch that? I thought that was great.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's a funny
I'm
line.
not a mind reader. So that was, I don't know, that whole thing. Well, what else should we talk about before we get
Oh
to
man.
what stuff?
Uh,
Fitz. Fitz.
yeah, Fitz. Yeah, you know what, Fitz? You need to get over it. Ward's a bad guy. You know, he doesn't have mind control or any, magic. He's on the wrong side. I mean, he just won't. He won't give up on it. Um,
Yeah, but I really felt for Fitz,
I
and
do.
the reason it works is because Fitz saw something that really was there. He's not just in denial. When we see the flashback, and and Ward couldn't bring himself to put the dog down, like we know that there really was something there. And when you have that moment where Ward says, "Yeah, I do care about you guys, but it's a weakness," and then he chooses to do what he does. Yeah, it's the whole age old we are who we choose to be thing, and I like that Fitz was right, but he was also wrong about it.
Yes, he was wrong about the how. Um, he's wrong. He was right about the deep down.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. He was wrong about the how, because he wanted it to be a lot more simple than it is,
Yeah.
and that's what I love is that it's very complicated. He's just so torn. It's almost like seeing somebody who's. It's almost like seeing a kid who's caught between two divorced parents that like. That like keep yo-yoing them around, and in this case, Coulson is the parent on one end, and Garrett is the parent on the other end.
I was thinking more along the lines of he reminds me of a fan who is just seeing characters turn evil and then they are given an out. Like, oh, it was really super master evil taking over them. And just like believing that, oh, well, then that's the case with this. And it's like, no, it's more like light. It's more complicated than that. Than
Yeah,
than it
yeah,
ships in their
exactly.
brain.
Well, and I love that I had that moment where I thought maybe he was controlled too. Like, the show did a really good job of making it kind of ambiguous, and then making us buy that this guy would act one way, for a minute, and then suddenly turn on a dime and act another way because he's whoever he needs to be for a certain moment, for a particular moment, and that kind of jumping between identities can be sort of dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know, man. So often, and I've said this before. So often, I've seen that in a show and been like, oh man, now that the actor knows. But like, I think when I go back, I'm not gonna feel that way with this, because he really is able to. He has that ability, to be whoever he needs to be for a situation. And then here we see that real conflict where he doesn't have that, because it's like, okay, was he just pretending, or was he being turned into something better? And I love that he was being turned into something better.
And I know this actor. I don't know the actor's name who plays Ward, but boy, I bet he's really thankful for the last 6, 7 episodes.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
that
he's
he
been
got.
given so much meat to work with in this.
Yeah, and we found out he was a good actor.
Yeah,
I couldn't have told you that prior to, say, I mean, there's moments, but like, I couldn't have told you that he was a really solid actor until maybe the episode of Sif.
yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Okay, so talking about this episode more broadly and tonally, because we're talking about the heavy stuff, but this is the lightest episode we've had in a while. It goes to some really fun, silly places, and let me say that I think that they finally found the balance for that, because there was a lot of complaint early on that it was too light and fluffy of a show that's supposed to be dealing with like issues of trust with authority and stuff. How do you do that and have a show that's just so kind of light and fluffy and goofy? And I think they found the perfect balance of that with this one. And I thought this episode felt really A-team in places.
I was going to mention 18. Uh, Except they can actually shoot straight,
That's true. Yeah, they do, and they don't have Mr. T.
and they don't have to make a watermelon gun. They can actually just shoot people.
Like I thought that when Coulson threw the file cabinet, that was very Hannibal,
Oh my!
right?
I just thought that was just great. I'm, sending you a file. It's a big one, and it comes out of
Yeah,
the window.
boy, Coulson, you've got a flair for the dramatic, pal. Like, did you have to say it that way? I'm sending over a file. How big is it? And then it comes out the window.
I enjoyed him and May and their undercover work and the way they put that together. I just thought kind of the nerdy. Didn't he have like a sweater?
Yes, he had a sweater.
And
It was hilarious.
yeah, they both look great.
And I didn't feel like that scene was out of place. It's really funny. The levity's turned up to 1,000, but like that's the stuff that they were doing at the beginning of the season, and now they found a real place for it.
Well, it has a little more heft to it when
Yeah.
it's balancing out some more darker tension filled stuff. When you just have levity balancing against stuff that's not that tension filled, well, it does come off as um, shallow.
Well, you know what it is.
Yeah.
It's that the comedy in this situation is natural. It's the kind of comedy that would in real life come from a situation like this. We're finding the humor in an otherwise really dire situation. So what we're saying is if you found yourself like when they find themselves having to live in a motel and they have access to nothing but like really old spy equipment and they don't have any authority to do what they're doing, there is something funny inherently in that situation. It's like all those, I can't think of a good example right now, but it's like all those places where things are like really, really rough, really serious, really terrible, and then all of a sudden you'll have a couple characters in a scene that will just look at each other, both instantly realize the hilarity that's actually intrinsically there, and just start laughing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is one of those. There's a moment like that with the couple in A Beautiful Mind, and I'm reminded of that a little bit, where it's like it's really sad, it's really dire, and then just all of a sudden, funny things happen when you're in the worst situation of your entire life, and I think that's why it's working here.
Mm-hmm. I also I gotta say, I'm kind of digging them working out of this motel for a while. I don't know about you, but I don't know. There's something I don't know. I've just been kind of liking it.
Well, it
It's been
feels
a
more like
nice
that.
it's been a nice getaway from the super plane, which I
Yeah,
know is coming back. So
they
let's just enjoy this, kind of like inexpensive hotel with a pool. It's a nice pool. It doesn't look too messy.
they work really great as a rogue agent team. I think they're almost more fun that way than when they have all their gadgets, and
Yeah.
like bringing in all the old spy stuff. I think was a really smart move, and it's absolutely hilarious. And I love that they can just pull in that bag and they've got something for every situation. Like we've gone back to the really old like I Spy and James Bond days of spy thrillers,
And also,
and
this is old technology too. This is pre, internet kind of stuff.
yeah,
Like
and
the
it's
fact,
almost like
like the
they're
fact that one of their cameras, I think it was, or microphones, was working off UHF.
Yeah, and I think that they're making a statement with that a little bit. That they actually have a little bit of a leg up with some of that technology because nobody sees it coming. It's so outdated and antiquated
Yeah.
that they're able to figure out stuff on a UHF signal because nobody uses them anymore, and nobody buys that any of the stuff that they're holding are actually weapons because nobody does it that way anymore. I always find myself wondering why we don't disguise weapons in spy things anymore. Like it's not a thing now, and they talk about that in this episode. And I'm like, why is that an outdated idea? How is it ever not useful to disguise something as something
And they
else?
used to do that in real life. I remember when Lindsay and I went to the Spy Museum, and there were examples from Cold War of what was it, briefcases and umbrellas that had dart guns and stuff in them. I mean, that was real stuff.
Yeah, I thought that they were kind of in a fun tongue in cheek kind of way talking about how sometimes the simplest technology is the best technology.
Yeah.
And it was kind of fun that at no point do they go, wow, we just don't have what we need to get this stuff done. Like that technology was always really useful,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that was really fun.
I love. I don't know. Triplets Howling Commandos connection is just awesome. I'm just really enjoying it, and I've been watching. And we have another episode watching him and Colson bond. It's like, oh man, it's
Yeah.
perfect because he brings all that stuff out, and Colson just gushes over it.
Yeah, and I just love that they're becoming such fast friends. Again, because a few episodes ago, Coulson didn't trust them because of Garrett, but then they were all played and compromised. So that's important to mention also for him and May because there's never really a discussion. Like May's come back pretty quick, and I'm glad she's back, but there's never really a discussion between them of okay, I trust you now, we are friends again, and let's go back to the way things were. And I'm glad of that. I don't think we need that discussion. I think she proved herself when she brought that file back from the grave. And Coulson is very likable here because he could be still being like, "Well, I don't trust you because you did things against me." But like, I think that he just recognized, and I think this is just implied. I think Coulson recognizes that now that the Ward thing has happened, now that he knows that this guy was under his nose the entire time, he can't really fault anybody else for being duped by anything.
Exactly, and I do love that line he has where he tells her, "I don't know if I've said this enough, but I'm glad you're back."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm glad they didn't stay split from each other long.
When we get to the very end of the episode and our team in I think a pretty effective cliffhanger is about to face that army. They look like they have red lights attached to their faces like they're cyborgs. Are they like other Deathlocks? They look like Borg.
Yeah, they also reminded me a little bit of I can't remember their names from Iron Man 3. That kind of
Oh, like those drones?
not not
Or
not drones. No, the Mandarin soldiers. They were
I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the fire people. I can't remember the name of that.
Oh, you're talking about the guys that
Extremis.
were
The extremis.
yeah, they were on extremis. Yeah, but the difference is with the extremis guys, it was that light all the way through their whole bodies. This looked like a mechanical thing, like on the side of their heads.
Yeah,
Like I
it
said,
just
they look
reminded
like
me of that.
Borg. Yeah, so I'm wondering what they're doing with that. Like, are the new super soldiers like part technology also,
Hmm.
or are these? I'm gonna assume they're super soldiers because of the stinger, but they might not be. I don't know.
Hmm. This
But I don't
is
know. I'm certainly curious about it. Let's go on to best moment, worst moment. What was your favorite moment of the whole episode, Manos?
I would have to say, man, I guess I really enjoyed. I guess I really enjoyed the flashbacks with Garrett and Ward. I think those scenes were needed. Kind of help flesh out this, not just Garrett, but Ward's relationship with him and why everything was so important. I thought it was a really well written and really well blended in story.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that was the best aspect of the whole thing. If I got to narrow it down to a single moment, I'm gonna go with the Howling Commandos item inventory
Yeah.
because that was just all kinds of fun.
And also, I really love how casual Bill Paxton was sitting there talking to him in the prison, just drinking
Yeah.
coffee and telling him, "Hey, this is what's what." I don't know. And then uh, that militia breaks in, and all hell breaks loose, and he's just completely cool.
Well, everything about his personality and who he is intrinsically is right there in that scene. I thought it was really well written. Because then after they break in, he says, "Told you this was going to be fun." And, we keep talking about how good of a time this guy has with what he's doing.
Yeah. I'll be
And
honest, I probably would have been tempted to go along with him too.
yeah, well, he's just so freaking charming, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard as a villain. Like, he's exactly the kind of villain I like because obviously you can't condone anything he's doing, but every time he's on screen, you're like, this guy is fun. Once again, I didn't have a worse moment. I just everything was all right with me.
I can't think of one either, actually. I hope that's okay with all you folks at home, but I didn't really have one that stuck out.
I mean, my criticisms right now are much broader and much more uncertain. Until I have a complete story. What's the big idea is all the stuff that we've been dealing with, but especially this time the question of whether or not compassion is a strength or a weakness, and also stuff about self-reliance and that kind of stuff. Did you pick up on anything you wanted to mention, Manos, that we didn't talk about?
No, I think that was pretty much it. Pretty much it.
Let's go on to favorite line. What was your favorite line this time?
Oh, I I have to say that line about Paxton has. I told you this was going to be fun. It's like, yeah, let's do whatever we're going to do. That sounds horrible.
While I drink from this solo cup.
Yes.
I liked Sky's "Where did they get this stuff?" the back of a comic book. And like I said earlier, speak up. I'm not a mind reader. Let's. The only comic reference I really noticed was the Deathlock thing, and I don't even know if that really counts. I didn't do any research to see if there's anything I missed, comic wise, but I don't know if Manos you came up with anything I didn't.
Not that I saw. There
Okay.
was actually. I've been thinking about it since I saw the episode, and I can't think of anything new that was referenced in this one, especially since last week I felt had a lot of name dropping and stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff last time.
But hey, you can't do it every week. If you do it every week, it's going to get kind of boring. So
Oh no, you certainly don't need to. Yeah, I'm just archiving. I want to make sure we get everything.
yeah, I don't think there was anything major that I noticed.
All right, our last big category is kills. All right, so Manos,
Yes.
your verdict right away. Are Fitz and Simmons going to die?
No, I don't think they're going to die.
I don't think they're going to die either. I don't know how they get out of that, but that is your again. It's a very spy show, right? That is a very typical kind of spy thriller thing of you drop somebody out of an airplane and then you cut and you don't know what happens to them yet. Find out next time. Yeah, they're not dead. In fact, I would make the case that they're likely to save themselves somehow.
It didn't even occur to me that they would be dead.
No, it didn't me either. But obviously that's what they wanted you to wonder
Well,
about.
of course, yeah. It's a cliffhanger.
Well, and also because the whole thing is, oh no, he's willing to kill them. What was kind of weird about it for me was I didn't right away, especially the first time watching it, know what exactly Ward was doing that they were freaking out about. Because it was like, okay, are they in an airlock where like they could get sucked out the back of it, or like what exactly is going to happen to them when he pushes the button? And then when it's a box that drops in the water, I'm like, oh, they're fine.
Yeah, they'll be okay.
Manos, now that we know what Garrett is up to and that he's been dying, and we didn't even talk about the whole he suddenly becomes like a crazy godlike thing or something at the end. I'm a little less certain about whether or not Ward is going to kill him. I was almost positive about it last time. I kind of don't think that's how it plays out now.
I actually do feel like that. Actually, I
Okay,
feel like that
so
more
okay.
after watching this episode.
All right, cool. When he says, "I feel the universe," I'm glad I wasn't drinking anything because I would have spit out. That was hilarious, uh, and I mean, like, I don't mean that I can't take it seriously, but there was just something about that delivery, and so I was just like, "That's great." Is he clairvoyant now? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be a wonderful irony if now he actually has the powers somehow with that stuff mixed with his technology that he pretended like he had all season? I hope that's where they're going with it, actually.
We will see.
Yeah, we will. I just don't know what that means. I can feel the universe. That felt very Whedon to me. I like that, especially because the whole story has been a lot more low key than we thought it was, and then to just all of a sudden make it a lot bigger and nobody expected it coming could be really cool. I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll see where it's going.
Yeah.
Let's go on to trivia. Manos, what was your trivia question for last time, and what was your answer?
My trivia last time was who created Man Thing?
Man thing.
Yes, Man Thing, who was name dropped last week,
Yep.
and he is the beastie created by Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, Gary Conway, and Gray Morrow.
Wow, it took 4 people to come up with Man Thing.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who's like a giant Man Thing fan? I wonder if Man Thing fans exist.
I doubt it.
Really? Really? Okay, all right. I mean, I understand why people are
No,
big
no, no.
fans of.
Oh, I mean, maybe seriously. I mean, everybody likes something.
Yeah,
But he's always been a very hard character to get into. I've read a couple of his comics, and he doesn't talk. I mean, it's very hard to get into a character. I mean, he doesn't even think. I mean, he's not intelligent. He's not.
that's a good.
He's not like the Hulk, for instance. Um, he's just extremely hard character to get into.
Well, I
Oh,
was gonna say like Devil Dinosaur doesn't talk, but he at least has a brain.
yeah. Well, he is a. Well, it's also a dinosaur. I mean, that's kind of hard.
Dinosaurs are awesome.
And he also has Moon Boy, who doesn't talk either. But actually, hey, that doesn't exactly. That's not exactly Wolverine either. I mean,
No, but I know of people who claim to be big fans of Devil Dinosaur. I've never heard anybody say, "Boy, I love me some Man Thing."
oh, I've heard people say that, but in a different context.
Okay, all right. Well, moving right along then. My question for last time was how much money does Colson pay to park his car after he crashes it? The answer is $20. Somebody in the comments said, "Yeah, and it's outrageous."
That is outrageous. I don't care if it's California.
I'll tell you, man. I went to New Orleans a couple weeks ago, and we got stuck in a parking lot where we had to pay 30 for the day.
Whoa, whoa.
And I wished I was Colson that day, man. I was like, that's not fair. Um, okay. What was your question for this week, man?
My question for this week is not
Hey.
really that related to this episode, but I thought it was super cool fun where we were sort of talking about the Howling Commandos in
Yeah.
the old days, and I really dig this side of Triplet. So, with the Godzilla movie coming out, I was trying to figure out how to kind of put this question together. Combining this super cool fun Godzilla movie that's coming out and the Shield show. I don't know if you read the Marvel Comics take on Godzilla back in the '70s.
I haven't.
Shield's responsibility was to take out Godzilla during they were the main adversary of Godzilla during the Marvel Godzilla book.
My God, can I stop you for a minute?
And
So Godzilla wasn't just published by Marvel; it was actually part of the Marvel U for a minute.
yes, oh, you didn't know
I
that?
didn't know that. No, I knew Marvel published Godzilla comics, but I thought they were their own continuity.
He fought the Avengers, man.
Dude, I have to read those. That's really cool.
And
I
all
didn't
right,
know that.
it which of the Howling Commandos was put in charge of taking out Godzilla?
Manos, that's not too unrelated. That's a great question, dude.
Ah,
I'm very impressed with you for thinking of that. That's very cool. That's probably the coolest question you've asked. I'm impressed. That's neat.
oh, well, thank you.
Uh, but I'm partly saying that because I did not know that he was ever Marvel canon. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. There's even a Avengers villain that made his first appearance in the Godzilla series.
I've sold some of those on eBay. I always thought the covers were cool, but I've never actually looked at them.
Yeah, yeah. It didn't last too long, but I think it was a 2-year run. But oh boy.
I may have to go back and get my hands on those. That's neat. All right. My question for this time, of course, is always from the episode. Is what does Garrett claim is in the brown paper bag in the flashback when he pulls a gun on Garrett? That's the question. Manos, as always, it's a lot of fun to talk to you about the show, and I appreciate you for doing it.
No problem. It's an honor to be here, sir.
And next week we'll be doing the season finale. And just as I've been saying with Arrow, I don't want the season to end, man. I'm having so much fun with it, and I'm glad that I finally get to say that. It's really really fun, and I don't want to go a summer without it. So I'm looking forward to it coming back and stuff. And anyway, everybody, thanks for listening, and feel free to leave comments as always. Feel free to tell us what we maybe don't messed up, and also what your reactions are to things we said and how you felt about this episode. And we will pick a select group of questions and comments for next time to talk about on our show. And in the meantime, this was Captain Logan.
And this was The Real Manos.
And we'll see you again next week.